Morning arrived, but peace did not. The village square was filled with worried faces. Men spoke in hushed voices while women gathered around the village chief, hoping for answers. Daniel stood beside Lily. Neither of them had slept. The mysterious light on the mountain and the drying sacred spring weighed heavily on their minds. The village chief raised his hand, and silence fell. "My people," he began, "our ancestors left behind an old prophecy." The villagers exchanged nervous glances. The chief continued, "When the sacred spring runs dry and the mountain awakens, the guardian must return to where the first promise was made." Daniel looked at Lily. "What does that mean?" Lily slowly shook her head. "My grandmother told me parts of that prophecy, but never the ending." An elderly man stepped forward from the crowd. "There is one person who may know." "Who?" Daniel asked. "The Keeper of Memories." The villagers gasped. Many believed the Keeper of Memories was only a legend. The old man pointed toward the mountains. "He lives beyond the Mist Valley. No one has seen him in many years." The chief looked at Daniel and Lily. "If anyone can tell us why these things are happening, it is him." Daniel didn't hesitate. "We'll go." Several villagers tried to stop him. "The journey is too dangerous. No one returns from Mist Valley." Daniel smiled calmly. "If staying here means watching this village suffer, then I have no choice." Lily looked at him. "You don't have to do this." Daniel gently held her hands. "I made a promise. No matter what happens, we face it together." Lily smiled through tears. "Then we go together." The village chief nodded. "You must leave before sunset. The mountain paths become impossible after dark." The villagers immediately began preparing supplies. An old woman handed Lily a woven leather pouch. "My grandmother gave this to me many years ago. She said one day the guardian would need it." Lily accepted it carefully. "Thank you." Daniel packed food, water, and a small hunting spear. As the sun began to set, the entire village gathered to see them off. Children waved. The elders offered blessings. The chief placed his hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Bring hope back to our village." Daniel nodded. "I will." Together, Daniel and Lily walked toward the distant mountains. The path grew steeper with every step. Hours later, they reached the entrance to Mist Valley. A thick white fog covered everything. The trees were taller than any Daniel had ever seen. The air was cold, very cold. Daniel looked around. "It feels like this place is watching us." Lily held his hand tightly. "My grandmother once said that Mist Valley reveals a person's true heart." Daniel smiled. "Then we have nothing to fear." Side by side, they stepped into the fog. Within moments, the outside world disappeared behind them. Only silence remained. Their journey had truly begun. The thick mist swallowed Daniel and Lily as they stepped deeper into Mist Valley. The sounds of birds and insects slowly faded until the valley became completely silent. Daniel tightened his grip on his wooden spear. "I don't like this place." Lily looked around carefully. "My grandmother always said Mist Valley is alive. It watches everyone who enters." Daniel smiled nervously. "Then I hope it likes us." Lily laughed softly for the first time in days. They continued walking until they reached a narrow wooden bridge hanging over a deep ravine. The bridge looked ancient. Several wooden planks were missing. Daniel tested it with one foot. "It doesn't look safe." Lily looked across the bridge. "We don't have another choice." One step at a time, they carefully crossed. The bridge creaked beneath their feet. Halfway across, a strong wind swept through the valley. The bridge began to sway violently. Daniel grabbed the ropes with both hands. "Lily, I'm all right," she replied, trying to keep her balance. After several tense moments, they safely reached the other side. Daniel let out a deep breath. "I never want to cross that bridge again." Lily smiled. "I don't think it will let us cross twice." As they continued their journey, they noticed something unusual. The trees ahead were covered with glowing white flowers. The flowers shimmered like tiny stars. Daniel reached out to touch one. The flowers slowly opened. Inside it was a tiny glowing butterfly. It fluttered into the air before disappearing into the mist. Daniel stared in amazement. "I've never seen anything like this." Lily smiled. "These are memory flowers. They only bloom in places where ancient secrets are kept." The butterflies floated through the valley like guiding lights. Without saying a word, Daniel and Lily followed them. The butterflies led them to a small clearing. In the middle stood a lonely wooden hut surrounded by enormous ancient trees. Smoke rose gently from its roof. Daniel looked at Lily. "Could this be Lily nodded slowly. The keeper of memories lives here. Before either of them could knock, the wooden door slowly opened by itself. An old man stepped outside. His long white hair rested on his shoulders. His beard reached his chest. He wore simple traditional clothing made from woven fibers and carried an ancient wooden staff carved with mysterious symbols. His calm eyes rested on Daniel. "So, you finally came." Daniel looked surprised. "You were expecting us?" The old man smiled gently. "I have been waiting for you for many years." Daniel frowned. "But we've never met." The old man chuckled. "No, but your story reached me long before you did." Daniel exchanged a confused glance with Lily. The keeper slowly turned toward her. "Guardian, you've carried your burden alone for too long." Lily lowered her head respectfully. "I've done only what my ancestors asked of me." The old man nodded. "And now, it is time for both of you to learn the truth." He stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Come inside. The answers you seek have been waiting for you." Daniel and Lily looked at each other. Then, together, they stepped into the keeper's mysterious home. Inside, the walls were covered with ancient scrolls, carved masks, glowing crystals, and old paintings that seemed to tell the forgotten history of the sacred forest. Daniel realized they were standing in a place where every secret had been preserved for generations. He knew their lives would never be the same again. Daniel and Lily stepped farther into the Keeper of Memories' home. The air inside felt different. It was warm, peaceful, and filled with the scent of ancient wood and herbs. Every shelf held old scrolls, carved masks, glowing stones, and books that looked older than the village itself. Daniel slowly turned in amazement. "I've never seen anything like this." The keeper smiled. "Every object in this house carries a story." He walked to a large wooden table in the center of the room. Resting on it was a massive book wrapped in faded leather and decorated with ancient symbols. The keeper carefully placed both hands on the book. "This is the Book of Forgotten Names." Lily's eyes widened. "My grandmother used to speak of it." The keeper nodded. "It remembers what people have forgotten." Daniel looked puzzled. "Can it tell us why all this is happening?" "It can," the keeper replied, "if it chooses to." He slowly opened the ancient book. The pages turned by themselves, as if guided by an invisible wind. Golden light filled the room. Symbols began to glow across the pages. Daniel leaned closer, but the writing was unlike anything he had ever seen. "I can't read it." The keeper smiled. "Very few people can." Lily stepped forward. As soon as her fingers touched the edge of the book, the glowing symbols changed. The strange writing transformed into words she could understand. She gasped. "My family's name." The keeper nodded. "The guardians are remembered here." Lily continued reading, but her expression slowly changed. "What is it?" Daniel asked. Lily looked at him in disbelief. "Daniel, your name is here too." Daniel laughed nervously. "That can't be possible. I've never been here before." The keeper closed the book gently. "You may have never come here, but your story began long before you were born." Daniel stared at him. "I don't understand." The keeper walked toward an old wooden chest hidden in the corner of the room. He opened it carefully. Inside lay an ancient necklace made of polished black stones and white cowrie shells. He lifted it gently. "I have protected this for many years." He turned to Daniel. "It belonged to your father." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. "My father? But he was only a hunter." The keeper looked into Daniel's eyes. "That is what everyone believed." Daniel felt his hands trembling. "Then, who was he?" The keeper sighed. "Your father carried a secret to protect the village. He chose to take that secret to his grave." Daniel stood speechless. Everything he had known about his family suddenly felt uncertain. Lily gently held his hand. "We'll discover the truth together." Daniel nodded slowly. For the first time in his life, he realized his journey was not only about Lily. It was also about discovering who he truly was. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees of Mist Valley. The keeper looked toward the window. The past never stays buried forever. Daniel followed his gaze. Somewhere beyond the mist, answers were waiting. And so were even greater mysteries. Daniel thought he had uncovered the truth. But what if everything he has learned is only the beginning? Some secrets don't hide in the darkness. They wait for someone brave enough to find them. If you're as curious as I am, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join me on this journey. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming.